fourth quarter of tribes
In space.
in space. Take it away, Steve.
All right. You're in space. I'm here comfortably in my fifth bedroom. All right. We're going to wrap this up. All right. So in the chapter towards the end, because I'm towards the end now, we're kind of like almost spinning our wheels a little bit. I feel like it's kind of like rehashing a lot of stuff, but I really want to put a bow on this because there's a couple chapters that stood out to me. The notes I took, chapter positive deviance. He talked about the importance of not being able to bring in change from the outside. This is a really cool chapter. Talk about social workers in developing countries. You can't just go in there and say, hey, look at this great solution we got.
Right.
You got to find somebody who is there that has a solution, is there, is doing good, and then amplify what they're doing, because people don't trust the outsiders. They trust the insiders. Like, who are the moms who are getting their kids fed in some of those developing countries? So, and I think that that's a really cool thing. I think it goes along with something else he said, like, nobody believes what you have to say. They sometimes believe what they read. They oftentimes believe what they hear from their friends, and they always believe what they tell themselves.
Exactly.
So with all those ideas, how does that apply to us as leaders with our people, with like trying to get, like, as you're talking to Louie or you're talking to somebody else on your VA team, or David, as you're talking to somebody in your team, instead of like bringing the hammer and saying, this is how we're going to do it, how do you amplify your people to say, I like what this person's doing, look what they're doing, and giving them spotlight?
So for me, we have an 80-20 rule like Google, right? So Google's, or at least I've been told, I've never fact checked this, so that. But Google says that 80% of the time they expect their employees to be on their projects that they're assigned, and then 20% of the time they are allowed to be creative in their Google world. So that's where like Gmail came from. Right. That's where the Google wording at the top, how it changes now, right? That was somebody just being, you just moved.
I'm in San Francisco now, so I'm sorry. I wanted to be cool like y'all.
ADD said who?
Right. Oh, sorry, as you were saying.
Anyway, and so for me, it's making them feel part of the team, right? So going in and to this guy's point, right? He uses the strength of this mom or person. I can't remember the exact scenario. Was he sent a woman in, and was it vaccines? I think he was trying to get them, tell this third world country that vaccinating your children was a good idea. And so he used her strengths, right? She already believed that. And so I think that if you use someone's strengths, that they'll follow you because they trust you, because they know you trust them. And that's kind of what I kind of took away, I think, from that part of the book, was it creates an organic level of trust that you just don't lose when you utilize their strengths and empower them to go in and be part of the change you want to see, but kind of advocate for it.
Right. So actually, this, like, kind of listening to this part kind of makes like my process for onboarding a little like that much more clear. Because during training, whenever I have somebody, it's funny because I think their thought is usually, oh, his whole intent is to make sure I know everything that needs to get done. But really what I'm trying to figure out is like, what's their skill set? Like, how do they talk? Like, what do they do? How do they like they even like, what holidays do they celebrate? And so that's the kind of stuff during training, I was trying to get little tidbits. Because then it's just like, then I almost kind of have like almost like a psychological framework of another person. And then it's like, exactly like this guy says, it's like, unless you're like speaking their language, or it's like you're getting them to tell themselves the story, it's like the more that you understand them from that standpoint, I feel like it makes it a little easier for me to kind of move. Because honestly, this person I just got, that's really honestly.
Okay. I mean, it's something that, as I'm building my team, I've seen other people, let me plug my computer in. I've seen other people try to do this and do it very unsuccessfully. You know, it's like, in theory, we're going to do this, and then they try to start doing it, and it lasts like 5 minutes. And then it's just like, all right, I'm just going to pound on people, and this is how, damn it, this is how things are going to happen. So this is a very cool reminder for me, you know, give your people their own platforms. You know, that's one of those things like we were talking about earlier in the book. Leadership is not always from the front. It can always be also be from the back, and kind of like leading people forward and letting them do like kind of the leading, so to speak. So I just thought it was a cool reminder. And then the next thing I put in my notes is people don't believe what we tell them. They believe what they tell themselves. And that's what leaders do. They give stories the tribe tells themselves about change. There's a chapter, I'm going to talk about this chapter, and then we'll kind of wrap the book. The chapter was case study, where he talked about the guy who, with the no-kill shelter in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
So this was like one of the longer chapters of the whole book, but everything he talks about in the book, everything he talks about in the book is like, this is it, and this is how you do it. And everything from the giving people their own voice to, you know, to, I mean, there are people who aren't going to buy in. They have to go. Like, we have to be people on board that believe the story and all that stuff. And that gave me a lot of ahas listening to that particular chapter, like to actually see it in motion. I mean, do you see what you're doing heading in that direction? Does that give you an idea of, I need to tweak this? Were there any ahas that you heard in that chapter?
So for me, when I was reading that chapter, the stats were staggering. I think it was like a 90% kill area before he took over, right? Or something crazy like that. And so to know that his perspective was, what does the public actually want? Like, are we actually listening? Because everybody was like, no, no, no. And I think the biggest takeaway is understand your audience and understand your purpose and make it clear. Because as soon as he got super clear about what it was that he was trying to do, his audience, he understood how to communicate with them. And it took over, it was a very short period of time. I don't remember the length of time, but it was 2 years or less that they were 100% no kill. So.
Right.
So honestly, kind of stole part of what I was going to say. So, I mean.
It's a good chapter. Sorry.
Right. So it's like, what is it? So, mind the question.
I'm making faces with you, so I mean, it's like making faces time.
That's how you know it's me. I got to make the faces.
Right. The question is, how are you implementing the strategies?
Right. So
dog shelter guy.
So it's funny because I feel like I've kind of been fumbling on this, and I feel like this example just kind of made it like it was kind of like what I needed to hear, you know. And it's for me, it's like I don't really have my tribe yet because I'm not clear on exactly what I'm doing. I'm not clear on exactly what my dream is. So it's just like, how do you latch on to that? You know, it's like, dude, what's your dream? You know. So it's like, for me, it's really like, this was kind of that reminder of like, hey, look, you need to clear up your vision, your dream, so that you can start your tribe. Like, they're waiting.
Right.
And then he even says towards the end of the book, like, I invite you to give this to another person. He's just saying, you know, like, we're waiting on leaders. People are waiting on leaders. There's so many people out here following.
Nobody actually wants to lead.
No.
Very few people actually want to lead. I was in my HOA meeting last night. It was comical because we have one guy who's like been the dictator for about 6 years.
Oh,
he just took over, and he openly admitted last night that he's been ignoring the president, not following the HOA guidelines, but the things that he's done for us has been for the good. right? Like, I'm not saying that it was bad or,
Mhm.
you know, but the reason it came to that is because nobody actually wanted the job. But it's funny because now my sister and I have gotten involved, and unintentionally we've created this tribe that is behind us because they want a voice. They want somebody to speak up for them. Like, perfect example, last night we were asking a question. They want to make a change to the amendment, or to make an amendment to our bylaws. So fine, it's a reasonable change, you know, whatever. So we put a committee together. We did like apparently 12 months worth of research. And they were talking about it last night. And the president goes, well, I have a different perspective. And Bill like cut him off. I said, oh, no, we don't need to talk about that. And I raised my hand. I said, no, but we do need to talk about that. Because if the president, you just openly admitted you didn't even let the president involved in all the research, like he was totally kicked out. And so I was like, no, we want to hear what Mike has to say. And like the whole room was like, oh, I'm really creating a trial. But you know, nobody else in the room wanted to stand up and say it. Everybody wants to be politically correct. Nobody wants to ever cross that line, that hard line.
Or at least not
and
first.
No, they're like, penguins, you go first.
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting to watch that happen last night as we're reading this book, and I'm thinking about my definition of my tribe and what they want to follow. I mean, I called him the other night and I was like, I got it, right? What do I want to present on social media? Because that's where in today's time your tribe starts.
Right.
And there's a lot of different sides of me that could tell a story that has the same ending, but it was okay, what kind of humans do I want to attract? And it took me probably 2 years to really define that. And I think this book, maybe I'm realizing right this second, my biggest aha is I don't think this book could have come at a better time.
Right.
Like, because the clarity and definition of what it takes to get to that point, I think is in my brain.
So actually one thing that I just thought of, I kind of made a correlation between this book and another book,
right?
The No BS Time Management. And I think in that one, he kind of talks about like training clients in a sense, like the concept of training clients. And then it's just like, I mean, if you take that a step further and you kind of get a profile for what good clients are, then it's just like, you can talk that as a tribe, you know? So it really just makes everything so much more clear.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, Laura, this book has come at such a wonderful time because as I'm adding people and trying to revamp like my tribe myself, like you said, you have to figure out what we do isn't for everybody. There are definitely people, and I learned that yesterday, there's people I don't want to work with. Like that guy, if that guy called me and said, I want to buy a house, I would said, well, good luck.
Fuck off.
Good luck.
Good day. And I already told my wife, I was like, I always put the people buying my listings, I put them into my database and they get mailings from me forever. And I've got listings off that. He won't get, he's not going into the orphan.
So it was the actual buyer that stomped his feet and not the realtor?
No, the buyer, the realtor, because the realtor would have let them in. But the realtor was like, she couldn't because the husband was at the hospital for something, getting a test, and she had to move kids around, whatever. And she's like, I can't be there. I was like, all right. And it was like a 40-minute drive for me. So I was like, but I'll do it because we got to do what we got to do.
Yes. Yes. No, you don't want that in your tribe. You're right. You, sir, are very intelligent.
Right. Thank you. I figured that all out. Thank you.
I love it.
So to me, I mean, that's the wrap of the book is that, like you just said too, nobody wants to lead. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago, like back in Bold, you had 8 realtors sitting around a table. Realtors, like, we're all high D drama queens. You know what I mean? It's like we all are hot, we want to go run through walls. And like nobody wants to be a leader even among those people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like even the crazy people who are leaders don't want to be leaders.
Right, right. Especially if it involves change, right? If you're just leading a system that's already in place, whatever's whatever.
It's more meaningful.
But when change is necessary, and I think our industry, all industries really right now are in dire need of change. I think people are wanting to get away from, it's weird. We say we want to get away from these big companies, yet we have big companies like EXP where we're all entrepreneurs, but really there's one big, but anyway, total sidebar. But it's time for change in our industry. It's time for change in your industry. There's change all over the place with, who's willing to get on social media. And it's funny as you watch these realtors who you coach and teach and whatever, as they start dipping their toe into social media, how, maybe they're not, just videoing themselves and the words are popping up and it's not really them talking, but they're starting to put their face out there. And so the way of marketing is changing. And if you're going to, keep up with the world and the trends, you got to be ready to change. And it's people want leaders. I mean, think about social media. Like every other reel I see is a different person teaching you how to do social media.
Right.
People actually really they want leaders, and it's easy to be one. See, Riley agrees.
He does. He's leading the mark.
Any last thoughts from you, Mr. David?
So honestly, I'm still on the correlation between the two books, really. I still just think it's a very good guide, clarity on just, pulling together your tribe.
Right.
And honestly, I think it's kind of a new, fresh look at, market research, really, and marketing, just having that tribe.
I think the whole market has shifted. It used to be, I think in the beginning of the book, I think this is the book, we read so many books, which I love, but sometimes they run together.
Right.
But I think it was at the beginning of this book where they were like, the way to live was factories, right? And that was the mentality of the leaders and the humans back in the 60s and 70s. And now, like, no one wants to work in a factory. So not only, has the leader's perspective changed, but who the tribes are willing to follow has changed and how they follow.
I do have a quick. Just hearing, because I've noticed, so just paying attention to like the labor market, the job market, it's like it's relatively, it kind of sucks. We're always short on staff, and if you actually pay attention, I don't know if you guys have started seeing like these TikToks or like Instagram ads where they're showing you like, oh, it's so easy to start a business.
Yes.
Like there's such a massive shift from the 9-to-5 rat race to like folks figuring out, oh, I can hustle for a living. Oh, I can do this on my own for a living. Like, and then also, if you think about it, we're still in a huge generational wealth shift from the baby boomers down to the millennials and the centennials. And so it's just like, however they decide they want to do business in the future, it's really going to have, like, the market's just going to shift towards. So it's like, I mean, you got to jump in and get a tribe before you're just part of somebody's tribe, and it's like too late at that, right? but yeah, so that's just kind of a thought I was thinking.
Which is cool. I mean, the social media thing is crazy because you get people. The perfect example is from a couple years ago, Backpack Guy. You remember Backpack Guy on social media?
No.
Backpack Guy he was like on Instagram. I don't know if he still is or not. He was on Instagram and he wore a backpack and he did the floss dance, and he would go all over the world and like do videos or whatever, wearing a backpack, doing like the backpack dance, floss dance, or whatever. And that's where like the floss dance like started coming back because of Backpack Guy.
Oh, that's amazing.
But it's like, but people would like love this guy and would come see this guy, and like he was like he had this tribe. And is he looking him up right now? Or?
He should have shared the screen and showed it.
No, pull up Backpack Guy, get him dancing in the background. But it's amazing how like these kids have figured out, like, so he's built the tribe, the people that love Backpack Guy. Like, why No, but he hits some nerve that people will follow him and love him and whatever, despite the fact all he does is wear a backpack and dance. But the kids have figured out through social media how easy it is to build a tribe.
Yes, right.
Now they just have to do something with it.
Right.
You know, I think that, was he talking about Greta Thunberg? The little, or was it somebody else that was talking about her just being, or I think he talked about the climate change activists or whatever. And like Greta Thunberg is like the perfect example of, like, whether you love her or hate her, she has a tribe that of people that follow her and whatever she says and does, you know. So the social is very important, and these kids get it now. They need somebody to teach them. All right, now that you have a tribe, what the hell do you do with it?
Right.
Right.
That's $1 million idea there, Steve.
Look, if you're looking for some help, call us.
We'll be tribal leaders, we'll figure something out. We'll figure
Consultants.
Tribal consulting.
I like that.
Oh, snap.
LLC.
I've started something.
Born today. I like it. Cool. All right. I think that's a wrap.
It is a wrap, and I would love to tell you guys what book we're reading next, but there's 2 problems. My computer is at the U-Haul place, and so I couldn't pull up the title. So I will text it this afternoon.
Sweet.